there's all these forces that like shape us. And I think traveling has given me an opportunity to be like super aware of that, and then have empathy towards like that is a part of, like, it's hard to separate it sometimes. Like we feel really at home in certain spaces and really challenged in others. So I don't know. It's, as far as in my music, I don't know. I don't really know. I think I also don't really have a place that I feel totally at home in a genre of music too.
I find the landscapes of Charleston, South Carolina, like soothe my soul in a better way than Nashville did, but the art and the music of Nashville is just incredible. And so I just have to recharge my soul batteries in Charleston and then get into Nashville and scratch the music itch, And Asheville here falls right in the middle, so it works great,
In roots music, the topic of place comes up again and again. It's so central to the form and identity of the genre that it's right there in the title, or perhaps more accurately, right underneath. In the case of our current guests, place is once again a centerpiece of conversation, as you heard both Maya de Vitry and Joel Timmons mention just now. Maya de Vitry, a founding member of the former band Stray Birds, has been making records under her own name since 2019. Joel Timmons is her bandmate as well as a founding member of the band Soul Driven Train, and I caught both of their sets at the Spring Albino Skunk Music Festival, which is a special place for both artists who have played there many times. Both Maya de Vitry and Joel Timmons are frequent collaborators, be that on record or on stage, with one example of that collaboration being the song you're hearing now, Odds of Getting Even, performed at Albino Skunk in May 2024. We talk about how the two started working together, including with Joel's wife Shelby Means, who now plays with Molly Tuttle, how Maya de Vitry tapped into a new fan base after getting onto one of John Craigie's Spotify playlists, and more, including more music from their live set at Skunk Fest, which is set to celebrate its 30th anniversary in early October 2024. I'm your host, Joe Kendrick, welcoming you to our episode on Maya de Vitry and Joel Timmons on Southern Songs and Stories.
Can't you feel the ground turning? Can't you feel the hours burning? Oh, odds are getting even. Will no longer be my burden. Will no longer be my burden. Thank you so much.
Southern Songs and Stories is a proud part of the lineup at both Public Radio WNCW and Osiris Media, the leading storyteller in music. Follow Southern Songs and Stories wherever you follow podcasts, with more at southernsongsandstories.com. You can engage with us on social media. Southern Songs and Stories is on Facebook at Southern Songs and Stories, on Instagram at South Stories, and my YouTube channel is Joe Kendrick NC. Our previous episode featured Margot Silker, who played her debut at the Spring Albino Skunk Music Festival in Greer, South Carolina, on the opening day of the event. Margot was accompanied by Maya Vitry on fiddle and vocals, and unbeknownst to me, that was their first collaboration. Maya reveals that story later in our conversation, which was just ahead of her performance the next day. We begin here with my question about her history with Joel Timmons.
Yeah, he's in the band unless I'm playing totally solo. He's usually there. He was living in Nashville for a while, and Joel.
Yeah, when Sally and George.
When Sally and George were playing. So
before Shelby got a pretty decent gig that took her away from that.
Yeah, so Joel's married to Shelby Means, and Shelby plays in Molly Tuttle's band, but before all that, Joel and Shelby were living in Nashville. And I was playing local shows like at this bar called the 5 Spot, and Joel and Shelby would come out. There wasn't like super big crowds or anything. It was just like a local show, but they were always there and just fans of the music, fans of the songs. And then we were also I was a fan of Sally and George, their duo project. But we were also just friends. Like we would maybe those two, and then me and my partner Ethan, we'd all like go hiking or go rock climbing together, just kind of like fun things. Get out of Nashville, go down to the Cumberland Plateau and do a little adventure, or even just like take a walk in town. And then we got them involved singing on the Violet Light album. They sang on that song How Bad I Want to Live. That's the one Ethan and I made at our house during the pandemic, and we had a lot of different guests. So, because it was a way for us to kind of keep in touch and involve a lot of our musical friends, in like very small bits. Like, hey, could you sing harmonies just on this one song? And so the record has like so many different musicians on it, which was really fulfilling for us in that isolating time. But that was really cool to involve them. And then I just thought, wow, Joel is a really good guitar player, and he's a cool vibe, and it'd be fun to try playing together. He first played with me at Americana Fest one year in Nashville, and it felt really, really good. And even if we strip it down to like a duo, we'll usually play me and Joel as the band, and then sometimes we play trio with Ethan, or sometimes we play as a full band. It depends on the setting, It depends on the festival or the kind of room or the kind of show that it is.
Collaboration seems to be part of your makeup.
Yeah.
Seems to come naturally.
Yeah, I think that's one of the best parts of being like a solo artist. I'll put it in quotes, because it's like it's kind of the opposite of like doing anything totally solo or alone. Like it's you're not really confined to any sound. You can like collaborate with one person or two people, or you can have a whole different backing band and do that for a while. Like, it's just very freeing to be able to, I don't know, like kind of be a free agent and collaborate with who I want.
How long have you been playing out with Margot? How did that start?
That was the first time we ever did that, yesterday. That's the most time I've ever spent with her in person, was yesterday.
Well, that's a surprise from the way the set came out.
Yeah, we fooled you.
It was, hey, good job.
Yeah, we didn't want to tell anybody, but we've never done that before.
And how much, crash course learning Margot stuff? How did that work?
Well, she asked me to do it about 2 weeks ago. She sent me a message, and I was in Europe at the time. I was on that UK tour with Joel, and I got the text from her, and I said, hey, I'm really jet lagged. I don't want to overpromise anything because I'm really jet lagged, but I think it sounds really fun. I want to do it. Let me just like think about it and let me sleep on it. And then the next day I woke up and I was like, okay, I'll do it. So yeah, then she just gave me a set list, and I learned. I mean, I was familiar with a lot of her songs, but it was fun to like focus and actually support her in that way.
You're both very lyrically rich and precise in your songwriting, and Margot said that the well that she draws from is when she's basically at home in kind of that still environment.
Yeah.
Where do you draw that inspiration? How does it work for you?
It varies, but it is challenging for me to finish songs unless I'm like kind of in a place of peace or like a place of not feeling interrupted by the next thing that's going on. The road is hard for actually finishing things, but it's good for getting ideas.
A month after Maya's performance at Albino Skunk, she brought her band to WNCW for a live session, where I caught up with Joel Timmons.
Yeah, I've been aware of Maya since her days with the Stray Birds. I remember loving that band and seeing them in Asheville and a few other festivals over the years. And I moved to Nashville, Tennessee in 2015, which I think was about the same time that Maya moved there. And I would see the Stray Birds around, see them at Folk Alliance, and was just a real fan. When she started releasing solo records, I would go to her shows at the 5 Spot pretty much weekly, and just really loved the music. And we became friends sort of through like rock climbing and hiking, and not initially music. We shared some interests in getting outdoors in Nashville, which was, you have to make an effort if you're living in the city to like go find a waterfall. It's not all just right there for you. So we would make little trips out to the mountains or waterfalls. And eventually I recommended a backpacking trip to Maya and Ethan when they were going to Hawaii. And I told them they had to check out the Kalalau Trail. And they had a great time, but it nearly killed them. And Maya wrote this awesome song about how bad I want to live when she came off that trip. And so she asked my wife Shelby and I to sing on it. It was kind of like closing the circle, like, well, you nearly killed me with this hike recommendation, but we survived and I got a song out of it. So, hey, do you want to sing on it? And we did. And that sort of started the musical collaborations. And when she was putting a band together to tour, like 2 years ago, she got Shelby and I on it. And I've been just saying yes ever since, and really enjoying it. I'm still just a huge fan of her songwriting and her singing and her ethics and the way she carries herself as a band leader. I just got a lot to learn from her.
Cool. Now, I talked about how collaboration seems to come easily for Maya, and she's done a lot of that sort of thing. So I wonder about how it is from your point of view. How does it work? And, can you give us some little insight into what it's like to actually do the collaboration part of the songwriting and the playing?
Oh, yeah. It's such a journey. And it's like, for me, it's a lot about trust and respect, as every relationship needs that foundation, but like when you're getting into writing, it's a really vulnerable and like, I don't know, like a hidden place, so to trust your collaborator enough to like reveal, your ugly warts and your half-baked ideas, and then massage that into something that you both believe in. It's a exciting and daunting process, and Maya is wonderful at like listening, hearing, and then reflecting back at you. I think that's like a good skill. I wouldn't consider myself a great collaborator writing wise. Like I'm just a real slow burn a lot of times for my ideas to kind of come out. And in the Nashville model, it's like some of these guys are writing 3 songs a day, by appointment, and I've done some of that, and sometimes they come fast, but in general, like I'm a little bit more plodding and methodical, and will just like chew on a line for a week, before I really have decided that that's how I want it,
I love her more than ever, yeah, she's all that I've got, and whatever she tells me she needs, that's what I'll do. Oh, but I'm so happy knowing how much more I want to give, and I'm so happy knowing just how bad I want to live. Here on my knees, on the way, never seems below in the ocean. Oh, you ghosts and angels
could probably write a whole series of books about the perceived meaning of songs and how that invariably changes and evolves once an artist gives them to their audience. And the song you just heard, Maya de Vitry's How Bad I Want to Live, is one that is a memorable context for myself. As you heard Joel Timmons and Maya de Vitry explain, that song was born out of a somewhat grueling hike that Joel suggested Maya and her partner and bandmate Ethan Jodziewicz take while in Hawaii. I would be curious to know what you associate with it, because the song has lyrics that, like so many songs that stand the test of time, are open to interpretation. For me, it has everything to do with January 6th, because I first heard it on Maya's album Violet Light when it was very new, which happened to coincide with that awful moment in America's history. Do you have memories of the first time you heard a certain song? Mine is playing How Bad I Want to Live while driving to work in the days immediately following the insurrection, and it just floored me. It will always be tied to that intensely emotional experience for myself and has remained a kind of cathartic anthem ever since. Quite a different context than a hike in Hawaii. Songs can be born out of experiences as specific as that hike at a vacation spot, but an artist's overall body of work is indelibly influenced by their childhood and early adulthood experiences, as well as where they grew up. I asked Maya about her perspective on how her work reflects her childhood in Pennsylvania.
That's an interesting question. I guess I've always, place feels interesting to me because I grew up in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. It's Amish country. I grew up kind of in knowing that I kind of had to look outside of that community for to really feel at home musically, with songwriting and playing old time and bluegrass music and stuff. My parents had a small friend community there that was we're talking my parents and then their 6 friends that would come over, and we would I was around all these bluegrass and old time songs, and just from people playing them around the campfire in the backyard. And and then we would travel to West Virginia every year, to southern West Virginia, to an old time music festival. And that was wild because I kind of got this sense of oh wow, these fiddle tunes belong here. There's people who live down the road that are playing fiddle, and they learned this tune from their grandfather, and I don't know, there you could really feel the connect when I started to kind of come more into Appalachia for the first time, because Lancaster, Pennsylvania is more farmland. It's right on the edge of the Appalachian Mountains, but it's not it's much more of just rolling hills, agricultural, cows and cornfields and cantaloupes and soybeans kind of place. And so that was really interesting to go between a place where I felt same with Asheville, North Carolina, when I came down there for the first time, wow, there's a music that is more of this place, and I want to be near it. But then I would go home to Pennsylvania and sort of feel more out of place, when I was in, I guess I'm just saying, growing up, I felt more out of place, because I remember in middle school you had to do a report in music class on your favorite band, and I picked the Freight Hoppers, and kind of to anybody else super obscure choice, but in my mind I knew of them from Clifftop, from this old time string band festival in West Virginia, and I just thought that was the best groove and the best tunes I'd ever heard. And so I did this music report in 7th grade on the Freight Hoppers, but nobody else was listening to that kind of music, of my age where I was growing up. And so I felt out of place. And I guess now I think it's just become something that I'm comfortable with, and that's probably why I'm comfortable traveling. I'm okay with being out of place somewhere, but I'm also pretty attuned now to the common thread between people, and that a place informs your it can inform like so much of your, what you're like tolerant of, or what you're interested in, and who you feel comfortable hanging out with, and what kind of music you like, and where you go to church, or I don't know, just all those things. It can have, there's all these forces that like shape us. And I think traveling has given me an opportunity to be like super aware of that, and then have empathy towards like that is a part of, like, it's hard to separate it sometimes. Like we feel really at home in certain spaces, and really challenged in others. So I don't know. It's, as far as in my music, I don't know. I don't really know. I think I also don't really have a place that I feel totally at home in a genre of music too. Like so there's that too. Like I feel very informed by the traditional music I grew up around, and the, Appalachian string band music and bluegrass and stuff. But I also draw a lot from like Texas songwriters, and then a lot from, I don't know, rock music in the 70s, and like there's so many influences. Yeah. So, well, Joel and I just got back a couple days ago from a tour to the UK. We were over playing duo shows in England and Scotland, and that was really exciting. And it's kind of formal. You have to fill out some forms and do this paperwork to get across the border, and be able to. Basically, we were technically we were migrant workers in England and Scotland for 2 weeks, and we had the papers to prove it. But it's still a kind of strange process, and it's a lot easier for Americans to go over there than it is for anybody to come and play here. So we were especially grateful for that. But it was interesting, like it said on my paperwork, Maya de Vitry, she plays original songs. She plays guitar. She plays the fiddle. There was no job description or post. She's not taking this job away from any British person. It was all very important, and it just felt so official. I actually played kazoo on that tour too, but we didn't put that in the papers at the border, which was, so don't tell the Parliament that we did that. But traveling like that always stretches my brain and just gets me thinking about all kinds of things, and just what a thing it is that we decided to make borders and enforce them as a people, because they're not natural. It's not, the rivers are natural and the trees are natural, but the borders we make are an idea. And it's always good for me to feel like a stranger in a place and have to go through the paperwork, because I just happen to be born here. And even though my last name looks kind of funny, it just never got really changed when my French grandpa moved here. Anyway, it got me thinking about all that stuff. We'll play a song that kind of talks about that.
place is so central to the context of so much of Americana and roots music, like what you're doing with Maya Vitry and Soul Driven Train. Can you tell us a little bit about how that might come through in what you're doing here with Maya Vitry or with Soul Driven Train too? And tell us, if you can, follow that up with what's going on with Soul Driven Train.
Yeah. So that band, Soul Driven Train, started in Charleston, South Carolina. Several of us were kids together in the middle school band, and learned to play instruments together, learned to work in ensembles together, and learned to party together, and learned to fix cars together, and do all the things that it takes to run and a DIY band. And I think, Charleston was a huge influence, both like the music that happens there and the food and the atmosphere and the weather. Everything had to have an impact on the way we approach music. There were also like an older generation of bands, like Jump Little Children and Squeezebox and the Blue Dogs, and even Hootie and the Blowfish, that were like doing it at various levels of success when we were coming up, to see like, oh, cool, you can put guitars and trombones together, and like make pop music, that's okay, and I think moving to Nashville really broadened my musical perspective and like my appreciation for classic country music and even like 90s country music. That during the 90s, that stuff was blasting out of every truck in my high school parking lot, and I didn't have any interest in it at the time. Could have cared less about Chattahoochee. But then after about 5 years in Nashville, like I love that stuff. I love Alan Jackson, and I don't know. It was cool to be in that town where all that stuff was made, and to realize the craft behind it all, and appreciate that. And it's been, that city, has introduced me to Maya, introduced me to like so many people in the bluegrass world, and it's made me a better musician. And made me a much more humble musician for sure. But yeah, I find the landscapes of Charleston, South Carolina, like soothe my soul in a better way than Nashville did, but the art and the music of Nashville is just incredible. And so I just have to recharge my soul batteries in Charleston and then get into Nashville and scratch the music itch, And Asheville here falls right in the middle. So it works great. When Soul Driven Train first started touring, we would come up and play house parties in Brevard or, Boone or, Asheville, little festivals and stuff around. So it's always been an important place for us to like learn how to play music, learn how to stretch out, learn how to perform for a crowd. Asheville always had like dancing crowds. We'd go play the Westville pub and people would dance, so it just taught us like, okay, let's keep the beat going, and that, I think we still follow that same creed when we go down to, the Green Parrot in Key West. And it's like, okay, we're going to play for 12 hours of music over the course of the weekend, and hopefully people can dance the whole time.
I'm from Carolina. That will always be my home. I said no matter where I wander, I said no matter where I roam, green horses in the winter, sweet peaches in the spring. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Blackberries in the summer. Ooh, yeah. And in the fall we got collard greens. We got collard greens, y'all.
Speaking of place, that is a bit of Soul Driven Train's live performance of their song Carolina at the Spring 2024 Albino Skunk Music Festival. There was a time when place had a great bearing on not only what music sprung from it, but also what music you could find there. Decades ago, there were bands that had success in their immediate region but failed to get a record deal that gave them distribution beyond their home base, which was also key to being able to tour outside of that region. There's a rich history of songs that were big hits on the radio in one market or perhaps a handful of markets in a region, but never made that success translate nationally. Even as late as the 1990s, two North Carolina bands became hitmakers after nearly falling victim to that same phenomenon, luckily parlaying their initial success on radio in one region to widespread fame, Squirrelnut Zippers and Southern Culture on the Skids. And that success began in Los Angeles, California, and Tampa, Florida, respectively, not in their own backyard. Those days are long gone, and now success depends far less on radio airplay and more on an artist's traction on streaming platforms. At the time of our conversation, I noted to Maya de Vitry that her Spotify showed almost 2 million plays for Go Tell a Bird and 1 million for How Bad I Want to Live. Side note, since then her song Wilderness has jumped up to over 7 million plays, which is truly remarkable. I asked Maya what those plays mean to her.
For me, it actually does mean something because I'm totally independent, so I don't have a record. I am the record label. I started a record label, and I release all my music on it. So it's called Mad Maker Studio, and so that's the copyright holder of those songs, of those masters, those recordings. And so even though, like, you can't make any money on streaming unless you get numbers like 1 million or 2 million, and that's just lucky. And I don't know, so, it's a combination of people putting it on playlists and sharing the music around, or maybe there's like an editor at Spotify who was a fan at some point and championed it. I don't know, but for an independent artist, that really does mean something. We're talking like it'll lead to like $1,000 here and there, but that is a lot of money for an artist, And I
imagine that it is just basically your business card in a way, that you're introducing yourself to these people who are going to be potentially at your shows and maybe buy the record.
Yeah, I think that it's been cool. Like it's Spotify's kind of like a passive way for people to take in music, because they're not like choosing necessarily if they're listening to a playlist or something. Maybe they're like at the gym and it's on, or like at a yoga class or something. And then, but I've been in places where there's music on, and then I like, what song is this? And I want to look it up, and I want to, or like the music in between bands at a festival or something, or the music that's on before a show. Like this artist I tour with sometimes, John Craigie, he has a Spotify playlist that I am on, and then all these other kind of peers and friends of him. He's put this playlist together. It's all these buddies in music, all these people of this generation, and he puts that playlist on before like when the doors open at the venue, that playlist is going on. So I was at his show in Nashville the other night with some friends, and one of my friends was like, whoa, what song is this? Like, my friends are discovering artists that they're going to follow because they're on that, John's playlist that happens right before the show. So it's like those little moments of just the music finding people who it's going to connect with. And even on the UK tour, there were some people who were at my shows that they were like, I listened to you on Spotify. That's why I'm here. I was like, okay, that's really cool. Yeah. So I don't really, I'm not too much of a purist about it. Like, I don't have a big opinion on it or not. But what the opinion I do really have is that I feel really glad to be an independent artist, because that way there's just fewer cooks in the kitchen.
That's about it for this episode. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope you can spread awareness of what we're doing. It's as easy as telling a friend and following this podcast on your platform of choice. both of which are quick, easy, and free. From there, it takes just a moment to give us a top rating, and where it's an option, a review. It makes a great difference because the more top reviews and ratings we get, the more visible we become to everyone on those platforms, which means that more people just like you discover and connect with artists like Maya de Vitry and Joel Timmons. This series is a part of the lineup of both Public Radio WNCW and Osiris Media, with all the Osiris shows available at osirispod.com. You can also hear new episodes on Bluegrass Planet Radio at bluegrassplanetradio.com. Thanks to Glenn Ziegler and everyone on staff at the Albino Skunk Music Festival for making this episode possible. Thanks also to Jacqueline Anthony for producing the radio adaptations of this series on Public Radio WNCW, where we worked with Joshua Ming, who wrote and performed our theme songs. I'm your host and producer, Joe Kendrick, and this is Southern Songs and Stories, the music of the South and the artists who make it.
Usually like to leave room for something that you've got on your mind. Now, these are the fun 20 questions that you can pick any of the questions. It's kind of bluegrass oriented, but they apply to, insert your genre here.
I'll talk about favorite instruments. How many musical instruments is too many for one musician to own? And what is your favorite instrument in your collection? I don't know how many is too many, but I think my favorite, I have this thing about parlor guitars, like kind of just the small ones. I just really love how I don't really put them in cases, and I can just like take them to the lake or take them on a picnic or something and throw them in the back of the car. I just love buying really, really cheap old parlor guitars and just maybe even like putting them in weird tunings, like tuning them really low or putting, I don't know, kind of terrible sounding strings on them. And I don't really know what it is, but I love like nearly unplayable guitars. I think I just like the challenge of it. And I write a lot on stuff like that. Like if something's in like a messed up tuning or something, I'll be like, okay, cool. Like it's something about it not being, not something about like the instrument itself being kind of out of whack or something makes me feel less inhibited, and rather than like sitting down with like a really, really nice guitar. I also really love playing like beautiful, like warm, rich, dark sounding vintage guitars, like really nice Martins or something, but I don't have any of those. I just have lots of parlor guitars.
It would follow that would be a creative aid to play and get into an unfamiliar sort of mold with a kind of crazy tuned.
Totally. There's this song that has been recorded a couple times already that I'm going to put out on my record in July. It's called Nothing Else Matters. And Lindsay Lou put out a version of it last year. And then Phoebe Hunt, who I co-wrote it with, she also put out a version of it last year. And I wrote that with Phoebe on, I was playing like an octave mandolin that I could barely play because mandolin strings are like really hard to push down anyway. And this was like even bigger because it was a big octave mandolin. And the way that the mandolin was resonating and the pitch and the kind of droniness of the strings and the way it made me want to strum, that's like where the melody came from, was holding that particular instrument. I don't think we ever would have written that song if somebody wasn't loaning her an octave mandolin that week. So I don't know. I'm all about that, like messing around on instruments you don't play quite as fluently and see what happens.
Yeah. Well, that's word to the songwriters, aspiring songwriters.
There you go.
Listen to the master.